I personally know her as the guiding force behind the Women's Conference, an event she grew from a small government initiative to one of the largest, most dynamic women's conferences in the nation. Her Women's Conference inspired thousands and thousands of women to become their own architects of change. She is a 6-time New York Times best-selling author. Yeah, right. She is an award-winning journalist and NBC News special anchor. She is the founder of the global alliance called Women's Alzheimer's Movement, and she just released her new book, I've Been Thinking, Reflections, Prayers, and Meditations for a Meaningful Life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend Maria Shriver. Woo! Wow. Wow. Join me.
Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow, what a great group of people so early in the morning.
Woo! I'm like, we haven't said anything yet. Hold on.
Look at this.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. So thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. Hattie and I met last year at my great friend Jan Miller and Jeff Rich's house, and we got to talking, and I was so honored that you invited me here to talk to all the women, and I see some men here, so I'm thrilled because I love men too. Especially good men. And so I'm really happy and honored to be here among people who are on the front lines, who are trying to better their lives, who are looking to live lives of meaning, who are probably already doing that, and who have had such a great conference. So it's an honor for me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. We started with a webinar with Maria. If for most of you, they knew about that about a week and a half ago. We were in your Sunday newsletter, and I just absolutely love the book. And then everybody got a copy. Did you get that?
I wanted to write this book because I've been thinking a lot over the last several years, and I've lived a great life and a big life, and it's felt small at times and big at times. And I think all of us really want to live lives of meaning, even when we're working full time, we're parenting. Many people, I'm sure, in this audience are caring for aging parents, and they feel like they just, can't catch a breath. And I wanted to put together into a book what I had learned about success, about power, about failure, about faith, about meaning, about forgiveness, and really kind of lay out what I had learned and how I had evolved over time, with the hope that it might sit on everybody's bedside table or in their bathroom and be the kind of book that you could open up and read and get some encouragement or inspiration and help people think about what makes a meaningful life for them, because for all of us, it's different.
Well, exactly. That was the first thing that I thought, Maria, when I was going through the book, and it is absolutely by my bedside, it's everywhere. Because there's some amazing things in here that it really makes me think about the whole life, the whole family. So let's talk a bit, start with family life. You're an awesome mom. You just, how was your family impacted by I've Been Thinking?
Well, my family is everything. I was raised by a total architect of change, a woman who was relentless, ferocious, mad, determined, and till the day she died. And she created the Special Olympics out of a personal rage that there was nowhere for her mother to take her sister, who was intellectually disabled, to go to camp or to go to school. And she was determined that for other parents of special needs children, that would not be their situation. So she created Special Olympics in our backyard, and everybody that came to our house, including my brothers and myself, all had to work in Special Olympics from the day it started, and we all still work in Special Olympics. So my mother is still running the show from heaven. So,
That's great.
And she was, opinionated, and she wanted me to be successful. She wanted me to go out and compete in a man's world and not rely on my looks, not rely on my femininity. So I parent my daughters a little bit differently than that, because it's a different time. She would always say to me, it's a man's world, you gotta be tough, you gotta tackle, you gotta get out there, you gotta dress appropriately, I was like, okay. But she was a great example to me of someone who raised 5 kids who are all best friends, who had incredibly long marriage based in faith, and who also stayed completely connected to her siblings and her family and worked with them and took on their causes as her own. So she was a great example on how to navigate a meaningful life.
That's great. And I will tell you, this book I think it was really us that made this happen, but as soon as you finish our webinar, it was flying off the shelves.
Yes, for sure. You made it #1, so thank you so much.
#1 bestseller. What I was thinking when I was going through it, and we tend to, as women, get so busy being busy.
Right.
And there's so much going on. And this whole idea of leadership, and how do we stop to actually not only lead, but to give service and take care of ourselves. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think women are at a unique moment in our history, right? We're poised to be great leaders, and you've had so many women speak here who are already great leaders. And I think the challenge before us is to think about how we can lead differently. And I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and I want them all at the table. And I say to my daughters all the time, if women are going to lead, how can we lead differently than men have led? Can we be more compassionate? Can we be more caring? Can we be more collaborative? Can we make those values the values that we espouse in our workplaces? And can we make sure to include men at the table? If we felt not included, and we know what that felt like, why do it the same way? So I think that that's a very important.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I say to my sons, your emotional EQ and IQ is going to be as important, if not more important, than your intellectual IQ. So I want you to be kind. I want you to be strong. I want you to be compassionate and caring. I want you to think about what kind of caregiver you're going to be in your life, because it's not just going to be your wife that's doing the caregiving. I want you to think about the presence of a father in a child's life. And so I think, people are being raised differently and being spoken to differently. But one thing that I've learned coming up in politics and in the news business is that nobody really excels when you're shaming them or screaming at them or creating an environment of division and fear. I have found it to be a much better environment, to be encouraging, to recognize who the person is, what their individual strengths are, and try to elevate that, because every single person in this room is a leader. There's just no doubt in my mind. Every single person in this room has unique gifts that are different from the person sitting next to you. And all of us, I think, need someone who sees who we are and encourages that unique, I call it a divine gift that's in each and every person, and help them excel at that and help that flourish. And I think one thing that women so often do, which I noticed when I was First Lady of California, is that we put ourselves down. We dim our light so that someone else can shine, or because we don't think our light is bright enough. And people would come up to me all the time when I was First Lady of California and say, you should do this and you should do that. And I'd say, well, what about you? And they would say to me, well, I'm just a mother, or I'm just an assistant, or I'm just a food worker. And I said, if we could just eliminate the just from our language and own who we are, own what we bring to the table, and surround ourselves with people who want to lift that part of our life out and in front.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Great. So I probably shouldn't tell them this, but we went to church on Sunday. Y'all not supposed to know that.
Why aren't they supposed to know that? I talk a lot about faith in the book, and I said that, I was raised Catholic by two people who went to church every day, and I went back and forth with my own faith. I've struggled with it at many times in my life, and certainly in college, I wasn't going to church because I was out all night, right? So that wasn't part of my MO. But certainly, having children, losing my parents, changing my life, losing my marriage, all of these things made me rely on my faith. So going to church, whether I'm going to my Catholic parish church, whether I'm going with you and Jan and Jeff to Bishop Jakes, whether I'm going with my son to Hillsong, faith is a really important part of life, right? You're going to need something to help you manage life because it gets complicated. Right? It gets difficult. And I think, I say to my kids, don't expect that something's not going to happen in your life that's going to put you on your knees, because it happens to everybody. And how you navigate that thing or multiple things that throws you down is going to make all the difference in your life. And you're going to need people who can lift you up. You're going to need a faith or an inner fortitude that makes you rise up again. And so you're going to need something that's going to help you navigate from here to there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's yeah. Absolutely. And I definitely picked that up reading in the book, your faith period, in that this is the period in my life now where this is more important. And you talk about meditation. So talk to me about the meditation piece.
Well, I was saying to you that I wish that I had incorporated meditation into my life way earlier than I did. And because it has helped me, I believe, become not only a better parent, but a better leader and a better person. And I think, I grew up in a political family, which was great, but it was high-strung, and it was dramatic, and it was busy, and I think that kind of makes people somewhat anxious, and to put it mildly. And then I went into the news business, which is 24/7, and it's anxious, and it's like, if you don't get the story, you're out, and she's in, and they're going to take your seat. So that's also, hysterical, to put it mildly. And I don't think anybody benefits from being around hysterical people 24/7. And I think having a practice of meditation where you go below the hysteria, where you go below the white caps, and you find your intention, you find your purpose, you find your meaning. It's 10, 15, 20 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon is a good way to live your life. It puts you in touch with what's important to you. It puts you in touch with your no and your yes. And it allows you to step forward into your day from a different place than if you didn't have it as a tool. So I write in here about discovering things that are practices that help you navigate life. And because one thing I have learned is that work is not your life. I know this is a networking conference, and I don't know if that's the right message, but it's the true message, because work, I have come to learn, is part of your life. It's a piece of your pie, as is your family, as is your faith, as are your passions, as is service. And I think that that's a really important thing to emphasize in running the women's conference. People were always coming up and going, I need how to, build my brand, and I need how to network, and I need how to get to the top. And I was like, you need to take a chill pill, because one thing I know is that work comes and goes, and to tie your identity to a job will leave you feeling like you have no identity. And so we are, each and every one of us, responsible for who we are, not for who we're married to, not for the job that's on our resume. We are responsible for the person that we are, and that's not tied to a job. And so if I could leave you with anything, I would hope that I leave you with the idea that your life is a big pie, and work is part of it, but so is faith, and so is service, and so is family. And when I say family, I don't mean just your children and or your spouse. I mean your siblings and your parents and the family that's in your community. And so that's a big life. And having it in perspective, being able to approach it all, as my mother said, over a lifetime, not all at once, makes for, I believe, a meaningful life, and a life that is of your own crafting.
Yeah, that's great, because you met our students that are here with us. Where's our students? There they are.
There they were, yes.
And so And I was thinking as I was reading through the book, and I was saying to them actually yesterday, I said, you know, these are things that we really wish we had learned earlier.
Right.
And I think it's a great opportunity for them as young women to really realize that the rules, you decide what you want your rules to be.
Right.
Would you agree?
And I mean, certain people give you rules too,
Right.
right? And but I learned a lot by being fired. It wasn't pleasant, but I learned a lot about myself, and I learned not to make my job my life again. I also learned a lot about becoming a mother and what was important to me and what was the role of work in my life compared to motherhood. I learned a lot by being a caregiver for a father with Alzheimer's and a mother who was having strokes. I learned a lot by leaving my marriage. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot by reestablishing my faith. I learned a lot about my friends as I grew older. And so I think life is there to teach us if we stay open to it. And I think that's the key, is not getting angry, not getting judgmental, not getting resentful, and that takes work. And I write in the book about the role of therapy in my own life and reaching out for help in my own life and being on the ground and looking for someone to help me up. But I think that that happens to everybody. So I would say don't be afraid, because what's inside of you is way stronger than anybody in this room realizes. And I wish that for everybody. I think so many of us are consumed with fear about how to navigate this, how to ask for a raise, how to pick the right partner, how to pick the right job, will we be successful? And fear, I think, can be either paralyzing or motivating. And so I would encourage you to see it as something that motivates you, but to understand that the strength that resides in each person is way more formidable than anybody realizes. There's a great quote that I used, and in the book I have a lot of quotes on each of the chapters, and I also have prayers, but there's a quote from Emerson that says, "What lies behind you and what lies ahead of you are tiny matters compared to what lies within you." So know that you have what it takes to have a meaningful life. You have what it takes to endure. Don't doubt yourself. I gave up self-doubt for Lent. Yeah, because, you know,
I love that.
I think, but I think, you know, the truth is we all have self-doubt,
Absolutely.
right? Even you look at people who are incredibly successful. I bet Mrs. Obama has self-doubt, right? So I think it's okay for us to realize that, you know, people who do really well have self-doubt. So if you have it, you're in good company. People who do really well are also scared, are also anxious. So if you have that, you're in good company. And how you manage all of that is really your life's journey, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the questions that, and we kind of talked about this earlier in the week, is this, everything that's going on in the world. How do we stay positive? How are you finding yourself able to be positive? I mean, you're so positive, the book is so positive, because there's so much negativity every day. I mean, I start turning off the TV because I can't look at that. But how do we keep ourselves positive when everything around you is negative?
Well, I think first and foremost for me is understanding that I can choose the thoughts, I can choose the perspective every single day. So I can choose a negative, fear-mongering thought and perspective, or I can be aware and shift it into a positive place. And so I do that by understanding how my mind works and my own control over it. And that's where meditation comes in. So I choose to try to stay above the noise. In my Sunday paper newsletter, we put out stories that are positive, that's not namby-pamby, that will actually help you navigate your life. News that you can use that's above the noise. I myself try to stay above the noise, above the gossip, and keep thinking about how am I moving humanity forward? How am I using my voice in a positive way? What is my purpose? Where do I want to move the needle? I spent a lot of time stepping back and saying, where can I use my voice to move the needle? I had done a lot in women's empowerment, on women in poverty, in women in the workplace, and women in equal pay. And I found, after really being in conversation with myself, that the best place I could use my voice was in Alzheimer's and brain health and caregiving, because no one else was using their voice there, and I could really move the needle in that space. It doesn't mean I'm not still interested in gender equity. It doesn't mean I'm not still interested in women who live paycheck to paycheck. It doesn't mean, but I can really concentrate my time in that space. And I think that's different for everybody. Some, you know, it speaks to them in the terms of domestic violence. Some it's gender equity. Some it's, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, and they want to talk about family leave. Whatever, we need voices who are passionate about moving the needle. And that keeps you positive, because you have a job to do and it's bigger than you.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite sections of the book is on gratitude.
On gratitude,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so I start every day with a gratitude list, and it starts with, I thank God for the ability to open my eyes in the morning and put my feet on the ground, which many people can't do. And I kind of like tick off a list right after that. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful that they're getting along. I'm grateful that they're still in conversation with me. And, you know, I don't take that for granted either. Anybody who's got kids in their 20s, they could choose not to be in conversation with you on any given day, and you have no idea why, right? So I try to work a lot at staying in conversation with them and really adjusting my mind to what I'm grateful for in the morning and in the evening. And once you start with one thing, the list just keeps going, and that makes my work better, it makes my overall life better, and it makes me feel better, really, about my life. So I think those are all tools, I think, that have been helpful to me as I navigate a professional life, a personal life, a provider life, because everybody in here is wearing multiple hats.
Absolutely.
And everybody in here can just start by being grateful for being here today. Like, I woke up and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's awesome. I woke up and said, okay, I'm so grateful that it's going to be a good day. And you keep saying that over and over. It does actually work, right? I want to ask you one more question, and then there is like a quote here.
Oh, there's a quote, yeah, I wanted to read.
Yeah, it's just awesome that I like. But one of the things that you talked about about celebrating the small things, celebrating the holidays, really stopping to almost just make yourself focus and celebrate. Why is that so important?
Well, I think life is challenging. Life is full of, you know, struggles. And as I say to my children all the time, right, you know, make sure that the people you're spending time with bring joy to your life, humor to your life, see the best in you, because when you walk out that door, it's rough out there. And everybody here who's competing and trying to have a professional life where they feel successful knows what I'm talking about, right? You know, there's a lot of heads nodding, right? And so I think to have people that celebrate with you, whether it's every Sunday I do a family dinner and I celebrate the friends my children bring to the table. Everybody's invited and it's open. I celebrate the Super Bowl. I celebrate the Grammys. I celebrate Valentine's Day. I do because life is short. And I've learned that, you know, I learned that as a child when people walked out the door and they didn't come back. Life is fragile. It's really, really fragile, and I can't say that enough. So be in a workplace that celebrates you. Be in a relationship that celebrates you and respects you. Be around people who have your back and who you want to be in a foxhole with, because you will end up in a foxhole. For sure.
For sure.
For sure. I don't care who you are, you will end up in a foxhole and you will learn life's valuable lessons there. But when you're in the foxhole, remember Maria said meditate. Because you won't be able to catch your breath, right? Know that you're in charge of your thoughts. Know that you have something within you that will enable you to get up out of the foxhole. And know that if you have an ambition that is larger than yourself, you will not only get out, but you will go better forward, stronger, more evolved, more loving, more caring, and a better person than when you got in the foxhole.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Wow.
Yeah.
I know I have a friend that says you're either going out of a storm or going into one, always. So
breathe.
Breathe. Yeah.
That's right. I think we don't put enough attention to breathing, because if you can just step back for a minute and go, I'm going to be okay. This is okay. There are people out there that are going to help me. I may have to ask for help, and that may feel humiliating, but people stronger than me or as strong as me have asked for help, and they have gone on. And that's what I loved about what Bishop Jake said on Sunday. He talked about the principles of service and the power of service, and how he was saying, everybody wants to be a boss today. But really good bosses are servants to their company, right? Are people who look at it as service. And I loved that piece of advice. And he also said, don't make your significant other in charge of your happiness.
Exactly. Yes.
Which I thought was also a very powerful piece of advice. And I think that really for everybody in this room, the world is out there waiting for your bliss, your passion, your drive, your enthusiasm, and your joy. Because a lot of people who are negative and fear-based are getting a lot of attention. But what I have learned on this book tour is the vast majority of people in this country are good. Vast majority of people in this country are caring. They don't care about race or gender. They don't care about economic areas or where you came from or how you got here. They just want to be in a community of people that are pushing our country forward for the good. And that's so inspiring to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to wrap up with her reading this amazing quote out.
This is in a chapter where I talk about what I learned from a community of nuns, and I have spent a lot of time in community and conversation and communion with nuns. And I've learned a lot about power from them, success from them. And in the book, I talk about my own evolution on that. But one of the women that I admire tremendously is a nun named Sister Joan Chidester. And she's written many books. She writes all the time. She's a Benedictine nun in Erie, Pennsylvania. And this is a quote from her, which is at the forefront of this chapter. And it says, "The moment a woman comes home to herself, the moment she knows that she has become a person of influence, an artist of her life, a sculptor of her universe, a person with rights and responsibilities who is respected and recognized, the resurrection of the world begins." And so I hope that we all realize we are in the resurrection. I think I love that imagery. We are living through a resurrection, and each of us are a big player in that. Not just you or me or Mrs. Obama, whoever sits on this stage. Each and every person that sits in this seat, that watches this online, is part of that. So I would hope that people recognize that they are the artists of their life. They are the sculptors of their life. And if you come home to yourself, you will allow others to do the same, and you will allow them the freedom to walk their path and be a part of their own resurrection.
Awesome.
So,
Maria, thank you so
Hattie.
much for
Thank
being
you.
with us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maria Shriver.
Thank you.